My adoptive brother hated me. When he found out about my feelings for him, the man who was always so proper and self-controlled cut me out of his life without a second thought. I thought we'd never see each other again. But when I was in danger, he took a bullet for me. As he was dying, he looked at me and sighed. "Next time, I don't want to be your brother." When I was reborn, I went back to a time before any of it happened. This time, I wouldn't ask for his love. I would just be the good little brother I was supposed to be. All I wanted was for him to be safe. "Oliver, stop being crazy." The familiar voice snapped me out of my daze. The man in front of me was a little younger than the one in my memory, his aura not yet so cold and detached. He still had that sharp edge of a young man in his prime. He was still in his suit, looking every bit the successful professional. He must have rushed over from the office. Walter, my adoptive brother. After my parents died, even though he was only 8 years older than me, he took on the responsibility of raising me without hesitation. And he did a damn good job. The last thing I remembered was the sight of him collapsing in a pool of blood, his voice full of resignation. A sharp pain lanced through my heart, and my vision went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was here. My brother, who should have been dead, was standing right in front of me, scolding me in that familiar tone. The scene slowly merged with a summer from my memory. He looked at me coolly, his voice probing. "Why did you apply to Westwood? I think you need to seriously reconsider. Was this a dream?" I ignored him, stood up silently, and walked closer. After staring for a moment, I reached out and touched his face. It was warm. This wasn't a dream, but the aftershocks of a pain that had nearly torn my heart apart still lingered. Joy and agony intertwined with the pounding of my heart, threatening to split me in two. My nose started to burn. "Oliver." He turned his head, dodging my touch, then grabbed my hand and pressed it down onto his leg. His brow furrowed. He was about to say something, but he froze the moment our eyes met. "You?" A moment later, he rubbed his temples in resignation, his resolve softening. His voice became as gentle as he could make it. "I say a few harsh words and you can't take it? Huh? When did I raise you to be so sensitive?" With that, he pulled my wrist, making me sit down next to him, and asked in a softer voice, "Your scores are good enough for a better school." "Why Westwood?" I finally remembered. This was when I was choosing my college applications after graduation. My scores were good, but I wanted to stay near my adoptive brother, so I applied to Westwood University, the closest school to home. I thought it would be a chance to get closer to Walter, but on my birthday he brought another guy home. In a tone I could never quite describe, he said, "From now on, he's your other brother." Back then, I was extreme and insecure. I grabbed his sleeve and asked what his relationship was with the guy. The words just tumbled out. "I don't want another brother. You're the only brother I have. If you like guys, why can he be with you and I can't? We're not even related by blood." Anger had clouded all my judgment. On my birthday of all days, I had exposed my dark, hidden desires to him. He stared at me in disbelief, then violently shook my hand off his arm. "I'm your brother," he said, his voice laced with disgust. "You're insane. You need to stay home and calm down." He left with the other guy. I sat alone in the trashed living room, with a birthday cake that was no longer edible, and spent the first birthday of my life without my brother. After that, he barely ever came home. Our relationship grew more and more distant. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore and went to apologize. He made me swear on our dead parents' graves that I would never love him again. I swore it through my tears, and only then did he forgive me. But even so, we were never as close as we used to be. Like shattered glass, even when glued back together, the cracks remain. Until he found my journal. He discovered I was still obsessed, that it was filled with secret photos I'd taken of him. He finally snapped. He burned the journal in front of my face and cut off all ties with me. From that day on, I no longer had a brother. Because of my twisted love, I had lost my last living relative. The price was too high. I would never dare to try again. I couldn't let my actions derail his life again. I had already ruined Walter's life once. This time, I had to stay far away from him. I would rather watch him find his own happiness. I would watch from my dark, damp corner as his life became full and complete, even if it meant I would be in pain forever. I took a deep breath, pulled my hand from his, and looked at Walter with an obedient smile. I made a mistake, Walter. I'll go change my application right now. What did you call me? Walter asked, stunned. I never called him brother. No matter how much he tried to coax or threaten me, I had always stubbornly called him by his full name. I lowered my head to avoid his burning gaze and mumbled that I was going to change my application. I scrambled to my feet, ready to head to my room. He grabbed my wrist. He held me with a grip that was gentle but impossible to break. Hey, he asked softly. Your eyes are all red. What happened? You have to tell me. I'll help you fix it. Looking into Walter's concerned eyes. How could I possibly tell him? That I love you. That I ruined your chance at happiness. That in the end I got you killed. Covered my eyes. Don't ask, Walter. I'm just a little tired. I want to go lie down for a bit. He fell silent. And finally he let go of my hand. I lay in bed as countless images flashed before my eyes. Arguments, distance, estrangement, death. It was all because I had developed feelings for my adoptive brother that I never should have had. As long as I wasn't in his future, he would have a wonderful, bright life. And as for me, I should stay far away from him. No pain could ever be as bad as the pain of him dying in my arms. Walter, this time I'm giving up on myself. Let's not torture each other like that again. With that thought, I shot up out of bed. I scrambled for my phone. Hello? Felix, it's me. Felix sounded like he was outside. I could hear the wind whipping through the phone. He chuckled. I'm not blind. I've got caller ID. What's up? Felix was a childhood friend. This version of Felix, fresh out of high school, hadn't experienced the world yet. His voice lacked the weariness of a working adult. It was full of youthful energy, the ends of his sentences lilting upwards. In my previous life, we hadn't seen each other in a long, long time. My voice came out raspy. What major did you apply for? I want to apply for the same one. I'm not going to Westwood. Didn't you want to stay close to your brother? He asked, surprised. I'm an adult now, I replied. Felix was silent. Felix was shocked. Felix asked, did your brother kill someone? Realizing he might have crossed a line, he added, I got into the National Justice Academy through early admission. Because of my major, I have to go to campus early for intensive training, and basically the whole semester is under quasi-military discipline. We have internships during winter and summer breaks, too. If you come with me, you might really not see your brother for a whole year. I glanced at the door, a little dazed. I quietly mumbled an uh-huh. All right then, I'll send you the major code. You'd better sign a waiver for me, just in case your brother comes after me for kidnapping his precious little brother. Felix didn't press further, getting straight to the point. Felix, yeah. In the future, if you don't know what to say, just say congratulations and best wishes. I offered this advice in all sincerity. I lay on my bed, my mind a complete blank. It wasn't until dinner time, when the housekeeper knocked on the door, that I snapped out of it and reluctantly went downstairs to eat. Even after a whole afternoon to process, I wasn't ready to face Walter. If you didn't come down, I was about to come up and invite you myself. The young man was already seated at the table. He glanced up at me, a smile that didn't reach his eyes on his face. I looked at the empty chair next to him, the one I always shamelessly insisted on sitting in. I used to be so fussy, demanding that he put food on my plate before I'd eat. Now I needed to know my place. I paused, then pulled over another chair and, under his gradually cooling gaze, sat down across from him. Sorry, Walter, I said. I was talking with a friend about where to go. We both decided to apply to the National Justice Academy. The young man pressed his lips together, his dark eyes narrowing as he watched me. He was already annoyed. I could tell just from those two micro-expressions. But I didn't understand why he was annoyed. He should have been happy. His little brother had finally faced reality and would stop causing him trouble. The more I thought about it, the more my chest tightened. I stopped thinking and just poked at the rice in my bowl. The Justice Academy? You want to be a cop? He asked. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? You were better off applying to Westwood. No, I just didn't know where else to go. When I was little, I thought having mom and dad was what made a place home. Later, I thought anywhere with Walter was home. I wanted to keep Walter by my side forever, to stop him from starting a family with someone else. That obsession slowly warped my feelings into a love that only burdened him. Only now did I realize that I was still just adrift. As long as I didn't get in Walter's way, anywhere was fine. Though that's what I was thinking, I just slowly nodded and mumbled. Yeah, it was obvious I hadn't listened to a word he'd said. His cold, dark eyes were fixed on me, unblinking. Even without looking up, I could feel his scorching gaze. But I forced myself to bear it, refusing to meet his eyes. After a few half-hearted bites, I lost my appetite and put down my chopsticks, ready to leave. I'm full, Walter. You've barely eaten. Sit down, Walter said coldly. I instinctively sat back down. Once I was sitting up straight, I realized what I'd done and felt a pang of regret. I had promised myself I'd keep my distance from Walter. So why was I still listening to him? You're not yourself today. Walter stated it as a fact. My eyes darted around the room, avoiding his at all costs. I was afraid that if I met those eyes, full of warmth and concern, I would immediately surrender and fall for him all over again. Some mistakes you only need to make once. I'm really fine, I just suddenly figured things out. I said in a low voice. Ha! Figured what out? That you've grown up and don't need your older brother anymore? Walter let out a short laugh, but there was no humor in his voice. You're starting to call me brother, starting to put distance between us. Is it because you think once you're in college you won't need my help anymore, so there's no point in staying on my good side? Am I just something you use when you need me and toss aside when you don't? Say something, Oliver. He tapped his index finger on the table. Toss aside? You're the one who tossed me aside. Twice. And I would never, ever toss you aside. My mind was in turmoil. I knew that in this situation he wouldn't let me off the hook so easily. I had to give him a reasonable explanation. During the long silence, I brainstormed. This was the perfect opportunity to immediately reassure Walter that I had no inappropriate feelings for him. So I said it plainly, okay, Walter, you're right. I'm dating someone. We got into a fight recently, so I've been a little emotional. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. And the college application? Walter's expression went blank for a few seconds before he asked again. I steeled myself and nodded. We've worked it out now. I really like him, so I've decided to go to the same university as him. You're being ridiculous. You've been dating someone behind my back. And you're gambling with your future. I don't know which part of my sentence set him off, but he slammed his hand on the table, his voice rising. Just then, the doorbell rang. A bad feeling washed over me. I'll get it, I said. I hurried to the front door. When I opened it, it was Felix. The boy had a small backpack slung over one shoulder. When he smiled, his small canine teeth showed. He was beaming. Let's go, Oliver. You done eating? We gotta go work out. Even though our scores are high enough, the Justice Academy has a physical exam. We have to do pull-ups and run 1,000 meters. With your skinny frame, I'm worried you won't even pass the physical. He paused, his eyes landing on Walter, who had followed me and was now standing there with a dark expression on his face. His sharp intuition sensed the murderous aura. He blinked. He looked at me. Then he looked at Walter. Walter, sir. Congratulations and best wishes, I said. Walter was so angry he almost laughed. So it's a guy. The scene was incredibly bizarre. Walter forced me to sit next to him. Felix sat across from me. Felix, Walter began, although you're both adults, and I have nothing against same-sex relationships, that's no excuse for you to drag Oliver into this nonsense. The boy looked at me blankly, then at Walter beside me. After a moment of thought, his face lit up with an expression of sudden understanding. I have no idea what he was imagining, but he looked ready to go to bat for his brother. I had a very bad feeling. I felt like he was about to throw his brother under the bus. Sir Oliver and I are the real deal. I respect his decision. He wants to contribute to the peace and stability of our country, which is why he chose the same university as me. With shared interests and being the same age, we'll be able to build a stronger, more lasting relationship. Felix shot me a wink, his expression screaming, "Dude, I got you. Don't worry, I'll sacrifice my reputation to make sure you get into college." I tried to interject, "Wait, listen to me." My mouth twitched. I wondered how I was able to read such a long, detailed message from his face. The real deal. Shared interests, same age, and you call him Oliver? Who gave you the right to call him that? Walter bit out each word. Can you provide financial support for my brother? Can you guarantee he'll live a carefree life? Are you willing to let my brother take on such a dangerous job? With every word he spoke, the air around us seemed to drop a few degrees, and it felt like no one could hear me. It was the middle of summer, but it felt like I was sitting next to a giant freezer. I quickly tried to signal Felix with my eyes, telling him to shut up, but clearly he misunderstood. I watched him puff out his chest. Felix said, "Sir, you make it sound like you're the only one who can do all that right now." Walter was taken aback for a second, then sneered, "Don't change the subject. If you're not better than me, what right do you have to date my brother?" The boy winked at me, signaling me not to worry, then declared with gusto, "I may not be able to now, but I'll work hard for it. After all, we're the same age, and we'll both strive to build a happy home together. Fortunes change over 30 years. Don't underestimate a young guy with ambition. Sir, please, give us your blessing." Smash! The sharp sound of breaking glass echoed through the room. I looked down and saw that Walter had crushed the glass in his hand. "Dude, you got an iron grip or something?" Felix gave him a thumbs up, his admiration genuine. "Can you teach your future brother-in-law?" He had adapted to his new role with alarming speed. "Get out. Go home. Oliver is busy today." Walter started coughing violently, the corners of his eyes turning pink with rage. He pointed at the door and said, "And I'm not your fking brother. I knew I was dead, so I just gave up." Watching Felix manage to piss Walter off so much that he was actually swearing was a sight to behold. Talk about a misnomer. Guess his parents were being ironic. Seeing that Walter was genuinely angry, Felix gave me a good luck. "Bro, I did my best look and bolted." That left just me and Walter in the living room, staring at each other. I tried to make a run for it too. "Walter," I said carefully, "if there's nothing else, I'll just go back to my room." The young man stared at me with ice-cold eyes. That look of complete control. It made my legs feel a little weak. I'll do the dishes," I stammered. With that, I gathered the dishes and fled to the kitchen. This time, Walter didn't say anything to stop me, and I breathed a sigh of relief. As I washed the dishes, my mind raced. It was too dangerous to stay here. What if, one day, my feelings for Walter rekindled? For Walter's sake, I had to pack my things and move out as soon as possible. That afternoon, I had already started talking to a few landlords on a rental app. Walter had given me a lot of money over the years. If I was frugal, I could probably cover tuition and living expenses for all 4 years. That way, I could become more and more like a stranger to Walter, and he could live his life properly. And since he wouldn't be in my life anymore, it didn't matter what happened to mine. Complete strangers. A bitter smile touched my lips. It was the best possible solution to this dead-end situation. After putting away the dishes, I turned to leave. I found Walter standing at the kitchen entrance. I don't know when he got there. He was leaning against the doorframe, a belt in his hand, his expression grim. I instinctively took a step back. "Walter, dating someone behind my back. And I just got a call from a landlord. You're planning to move out behind my back, too. Finished with high school and suddenly you've got wings. Huh? What's the next surprise you have for me? Showing up with a baby and telling me I'm an uncle? Or are you planning to cut ties with your brother altogether? Oliver, you've got a lot of nerve treating your brother like this." I swallowed hard, watching him lightly tap the belt in his left hand against his right palm. I knew he was serious this time. The last time he'd spanked me, I was 8 or 9 and had misbehaved. In my last life, even when he found out I was in love with him, he never did this to me. "Walter, don't be angry. There's a reason for all of this. The young man looked at me coldly and sneered. You little liar. I'm not trusting you for a while. If you don't want me to get rough, you'll bend over the table. Do it now. Back to me. I ended up on my bed. The heat still hadn't faded from my face. It was so humiliating. Even though Walter hadn't hit me hard, my backside still burned like it was on fire. Every time I thought about it, Walter's cold voice echoed in my ears. 10 swats. You count. If you get it wrong, we start over. Just like when you were little. Even though Walter had always spoiled me as a kid, he never went easy on me when I crossed a major line. He knew the spot was fleshy, it hurt like hell, but it did very little actual damage, making it highly effective. So every time, this was his go-to move. Smack! The belt landed on my clothed backside. I clenched my fists and squeezed out through my teeth. Throughout the whole process, no matter what I said, Walter didn't respond. I don't know why, but in the midst of that pain, I felt the heavy burden I was carrying start to lighten. After the final swat, the tears I had suppressed for so long, a mixture of regret and bitterness, finally fell. One drop, then two, landed on the bed. I heard the belt being set aside. He must have seen my back trembling uncontrollably because he quickly walked over. He knelt down to face me. In his dark pupils, I saw my own red-rimmed eyes and the 2 tear tracks on my face. His cold facade shattered. The young man sighed, and when he spoke again, his voice was tinged with bitterness. Sweetheart, we don't have a safety net. Ever since you were 6, I've raised you with my own 2 hands. You're the closest, the only person I have left in this world. My greatest wish in life is to see you live a happy, carefree life. I don't want you to ruin your own future, even if it means people will call me a dictator. Don't hate me. Don't resent me. Just think about it and then come talk to me. Okay? He gently wiped the tears from my face. You're all I have. It had been so long since he had spoken to me with such a gentle tone. He ruffled my hair. I'll go get you some cream. Put it on, you'll be fine by tomorrow. While he went to get the cream, I went back to my room. I'm all he has. I sat up on my bed. I looked out the window at the heavy night sky. The feeling of oppression that had just dissipated came rushing back. Walter, I made you angry and worried again. In my last life, I kept you from your happiness and caused your early death. In this life, just changing my college application made you worry and get angry. Feels like I can't do anything right. A knock came at the door. Oliver, can I come in? Come in, I said. He came in holding the ointment and a glass of warm milk. Seeing me standing by the bed, Walter's expression darkened, his thoughts unreadable. I'll put the cream here. Remember to apply it before you go to sleep. And drink the milk, it'll help you sleep. Walter placed the tube on the table. I didn't have the energy to speak, so I just nodded. Seeing that I was still listless and withdrawn, he didn't say anything else. He just stood there watching me for a long time. In the span of a single day, a chasm had suddenly opened between us. He was probably baffled, wondering why the little brother who had been playfully asking for rewards just yesterday had suddenly become this way, repressed, pained, and silent. He was probably waiting for me to say something, anything, so he could glean some clue from my words about what had happened to me. But I remained silent. It was a wordless resistance, a form of verbal violence. He couldn't bear it any longer and left the room, his shadow trailing behind him. Hearing the door click shut, I finally let out a breath of relief. I opened the window. On this midsummer night, a cool breeze rustled the hem of my shirt. Walter thought that since I was only 5 or 6, I wouldn't remember, so he never brought it up. But I remembered everything. I remembered how my mother died. She was sitting on the windowsill of her hospital room, singing a song from her favorite musical. When she sang the very last note, she jumped. She had given me money to go buy candy. I had just bought the candy and was excitedly walking back toward the building. I saw it happen. Thud. I've almost forgotten what my mother looked like. But the sound of her body hitting the ground was deafening. I'll never forget it as long as I live. I sat on my windowsill, my legs dangling slowly. Wide awake, I passed the first night of my new life. I'll become a cop. I steeled my resolve. It wasn't just to get away from my brother. It was also because if I could help even one person, maybe my rebirth would have more meaning. I'm an atheist, but I figured I should rack up some good karma. Since I was able to be reborn, if reincarnation is real, maybe in the next life, I can hold my brother's hand without hiding. Where I love my brother. And my brother loves me too. I didn't change my college application. Walter tried to talk to me several times. I refused to budge, explaining over and over again my reasons for choosing the Justice Academy. He was completely out of options. He sneered, "You stubborn mule. Go ahead. Go so far away. If you die out there, don't expect me to come collect your body. I'll video call you every day, Walter. And I'll come back as soon as I have a break." I held his hand and promised him earnestly, not mentioning that the academy also organized mandatory internships. I had figured it out overnight. I couldn't just sever all ties with Walter at once. Not only would Walter go crazy, but I wouldn't be able to handle it either. I had to do it slowly, little by little, like boiling a frog in warm water. That way, Walter would gradually get used to it. Besides, I'd be so far away. Even if I didn't call, I could just say a general in the field isn't always bound by his sovereign's command. Walter's expression finally softened a little. He huffed. "Fine. At least you have some conscience. Since you're so set on this, I have one condition. I'll be the one training with you. You're not allowed to be with that Felix kid," the young man said. Although his face was stern, the corners of his lips were turned up slightly, and his voice was much gentler. My excuse had fallen apart after Walter found Felix's parents. Felix had sent me a text. He also sent me a message. "I can't help you anymore, bro. If I lie again, my old man is gonna ground me until I'm 30. From that short sentence, I knew Walter had gotten his revenge on Felix. Looking at Walter now, I wisely swallowed all my arguments. I obediently nodded and said okay. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was time for school to start. Walter drove me. Naturally, Felix hitched a ride. When Walter saw Felix at the door, grinning from ear to ear and calling him brother, his mouth twitched violently. When his gaze fell on me, I scratched my head awkwardly and said, "We're going to the same school, Walter. It's on the way." Walter glanced at Felix and got into the car first. I knew that was his reluctant approval. In the car, Walter reminded me of things over and over again. I listened to every word. This was the first time in 2 lifetimes that I was traveling so far on my own. I thought, I need to learn to be independent and fast. At the police academy, it was 5 a.m. wake-ups and 10 p.m. lights out. Every day was packed with training, meetings, and activities. With this pace of life, I had a lot less time for my obsessive thoughts. Felix became my roommate. Of our other 2 roommates, one got permission to live off campus, and the other was in a relationship and spent all his time doting on his girlfriend outside the women's dorm. So I used this time to call Walter every single day without fail. Yeah, Walter, I was first in my squadron on the last exam. Top marks in every subject and first in the department too. There's a scholarship. I'll treat you to dinner with it. Okay, lights out soon, the inspectors are coming around. I'll talk to you later. After I hung up the phone, Felix asked curiously, "You and Walter aren't blood brothers, right?" "Yeah." I had just hung up and nodded at his words. Felix said, "You're in love with him." Came out of nowhere. Completely blindsided. My eyes went wide as I stared at Felix. Thank God no one else was in the dorm, or I wouldn't have been able to talk my way out of that one. "Hey man, I've got 20/20 vision, Felix said smugly. "And I think your brother might like you too. Why are you guys so awkward on the phone every day? You should learn from our other roommate. The way he talks to his girlfriend is sickeningly sweet. That's not how you do a relationship." Did he have any idea how shocking the words coming out of his mouth were? In the time we'd been here, I had become completely certain that he was straight. But why was a straight guy so accepting of all this? My head started to ache. I let out a long sigh and shook my head. It's not as simple as you think. He doesn't like me. In the short term, we were still brothers by name, living together. He had inherited his parents' business, started his own successful company, and his career was thriving. If word got out that he was involved with his adoptive brother, the public backlash would be devastating for him. In the long term, a whole lifetime and his own life already stood between me and Walter. I no longer had the courage or determination to cling to him and insist on trying like I did before. And that was all assuming he even liked me in the first place. Based on my last life, I could only conclude that he was just habitually good to me. His feelings for me were just familial affection born from us depending on each other for so long. That was it. His last words were still, "I don't want to be your brother." I really was a huge burden to him as a brother. "He doesn't like you?" The handsome boy narrowed his eyes, a calculating look on his face. When I told him I was his brother-in-law, his face turned green. For some reason, the memory of Walter's livid face made me laugh. But as I laughed, I started to cry. I wiped away my tears and said, "Felix, he doesn't like me, and he shouldn't." The boy fell silent. He pulled out a few tissues and handed them to me. After a moment, he said softly, "I'm sorry." He was perceptive, always able to see the truth behind a facade or a change in emotion. But because he was so perceptive, he lacked subtlety. Felix couldn't empathize with the story. He did what he thought was right and would solve the problem most directly. If you like someone, you should pursue them boldly, casting aside societal norms. People in love should be together. In his eyes, it was as simple as eating when you're hungry. But in situations like this, the correct path was actually the wrong one. I said, "It's not your fault, Felix. I'm changing my major." Changing my major wasn't a small thing. Even after the professor confirmed my choice multiple times, I still had no intention of telling Walter. Since I was grown up now, I would make my own decisions. Contrary to what Felix had found out, there were no internships for freshmen. Winter and summer breaks were as usual. My brother came to pick me up. Even though we video called every day, seeing him in person still left me a little stunned. The young man strode over, reached out and pinched my cheek. "You've lost weight," he said. Though he only said those 2 words, I could hear the hoarseness in his voice. His eyes were a little red, too. I smiled and said, "What are you talking about, Walter? I eat well and live well here. Plus, I work out every day. You should be saying I've gotten stronger." "You've been through a lot," Walter said. "Even if you don't become a cop, I can still support you. I can't let you support me forever. After you get married, it's not like you can keep a room for me in your new house," I said. I could already joke with him about these things. Walter froze, his expression stiffening on his face as if a computer had just lagged for a few seconds. A moment later, he said, "If you don't like it, I'll never get married. I'll take care of you forever. What would people say?" "Walter, I'm grown up now. I have my own ambitions," I said. "Don't worry. I'll protect our country, and I'll protect you." The young man stared at me. The winters in DC are cold. The wind had turned his nose red. "Let's go, Walter." Only then did Walter snap out of it. He took my hand and tucked it into his own coat pocket. "Let's go," he said. "Let's go home." On the way, he asked me tirelessly about my daily life, if I had met anyone interesting or anyone I liked. I patiently answered all his questions. I sketched out a picture of my life for him, filling in the time he wasn't there. On the high-speed train, he just rested his chin on his hand and watched me with a smile. It felt as if the chasm between us had disappeared, and we were back to how we were at the very beginning. We were close brothers, the kind who could trust each other with their lives. "Let's just stay like this, Walter. This is pretty good, too." Everything changed in the second half of my junior year. On a night of torrential rain, I was suddenly jolted awake by my phone vibrating. I was alone in the dorm. I propped myself up, squinting at the caller ID. It was Walter. I was instantly wide awake. He wouldn't call me at this hour unless it was an emergency. I quickly answered. "Walter, what's wrong?" "Oliver." A hoarse, deep voice came through the phone, as gloomy and damp as the storm outside. "I'm at the school gate. We need to meet. It's so late. Why are you? Never mind, wait for me. I'm coming now." The sense of unease in my heart grew heavier. Did something happen at home? What could make him rush to DC in the middle of the night? The dorm supervisor was already asleep. After a moment's thought, I ran down to the first floor. I sheepishly woke up a classmate and climbed out the window of their room. When I got to the school gate, I saw Walter standing there in the distance, holding a black umbrella. Even though he had an umbrella, he looked like he was soaked to the bone, which only accentuated the paleness of his face and the redness of his lips. Running with an umbrella was too slow. I closed mine and sprinted toward him. Walter was startled for a moment, then started running toward me. He held the umbrella over my head, let out a breath of relief, and pulled me into his arms. "Tell me what's wrong, Walter," I said, taking a deep breath to calm my racing heart. Walter pressed his lips together, his dark eyes staring into mine. They were swirling with so many thick emotions it was unnerving. He asked, "Why did you choose the Justice Academy?" I was stunned. He had already asked me that question when I first applied. "Oliver, why did you choose the Justice Academy?" He repeated himself, his gaze stubbornly fixed on me. I think I understood. I knew where he had come from. I said, "So that Walter wouldn't die again. So I could keep him safe. Stabbed by a junkie in a drug-fueled rage, dying in my arms." Walter blinked, and a raindrop rolled down from the corner of his eye. One drop, then two. It was pouring outside the umbrella and drizzling underneath it. "That's not a reason to choose narcotics." "Drop out," Walter said, his voice raw. "I'll support you for the rest of your life." I shook my head. "I'm grown up now, Walter." "Walter," I said, looking out at the curtain of rain beyond the umbrella, "even after being reborn, I still have a nightmare at least once a week. I dream that you stop breathing in my arms, that blood flows from the wound in your chest. I try to plug the hole, but it's useless. I beg everyone passing by to save you. In my dreams, I've already cried a lifetime of tears. If I don't do this, I'll be trapped forever in the day you died. Walter, if I died, what would you do?" I never got his answer. On that stormy night, Walter came and went. I climbed back into the dorm, soaked to the bone, startling my friend. My friend laughed and teased. "What, your girlfriend tried to break up with you? Just went to salvage your love life?" I forced a bitter smile and played along. "Yeah, it's over for good this time." My friend sighed. "Don't worry about it. With a handsome face like yours, you'll always find someone better." I didn't say anything else. I went back to my own room, took a cold shower, dried my hair, and lay back down on the bed. With so much on my mind, I couldn't sleep soundly. In a hazy state, I dreamed of the past. It was a long, long time ago, a memory from when I was 4. My mother and stepfather were both alive, whispering to each other as they cooked in the kitchen. Walter was hunched over his homework at the table, and I was lying on the freshly covered sofa, smelling the aroma of the food, having a nonsensical conversation with him. I drifted off to sleep with the fan blowing on me. That was the last beautiful afternoon I remembered. After that, it was one hardship after another, family members dying, brothers turning against each other. Time ruthlessly pushed me forward, never giving me a moment to catch my breath. Walter started ignoring my calls. I could feel us slowly drifting apart. I had expected this, but it still hurt. I started staring at my phone more and more often. Sometimes my squadron would have a large lecture class with Felix's. He sat down next to me, and seeing my state, he knew what was going on. He rested his chin on his hand and said, "Your brother's afraid of losing you. You know how it is, caring makes people irrational. The least you can do is not make him worry so much. You two are so close, what could possibly be so hard to talk about?" He was right. Besides, my birthday was coming up. "I get it. Thanks," I said, grabbing his hand. A girl sitting next to us who knew us both let out a gasp. Felix put on a high-pitched voice and said to her, "If you keep thinking those dirty thoughts, he's going to be stuck with you for life. Get lost." After my persistent attempts to communicate, and after promising him again and again that I would always prioritize my own safety, telling him that just because I studied this major didn't mean I had to work in the field and that there were plenty of office jobs, Walter finally, reluctantly, started talking to me again. He wrote me a long letter. He said the guy from my last life, the one he brought home, was just an actor he paid. He didn't like anyone else. He said, "You want to be a public servant." He wanted me to have a good life. Having already died once, Walter seemed to have figured something out. His tone was much lighter, but he never once mentioned loving me. Even so, as I read it, I couldn't keep the smile off my face. My brother's life was getting better. On my birthday, he came to DC again. I ran to him and threw myself into his arms. The sky was clear, and the sun was shining brightly. My brother and I settled down in DC together. His company was running smoothly, and he had more free time recently, so he spent his days at home, tinkering with new recipes. These past few days, he had been acting mysterious, and he was in an exceptionally good mood. I frowned. I decided not to tell him about this next operation. I'll probably be working overtime for the next couple of days, so I won't be home at night. Walter nodded, used to it by now. Okay. Will you be able to come back this weekend? I should be wrapping things up by then. I'll probably be back. I'll call you, I said. Okay. I'll wait for you. Walter saw me out. I walked a long way before calling a colleague to pick me up. The truth was, I never told him. After graduation and choosing my post, I still chose this line of work. I started my investigation with the drug addict who had stabbed him in our last life. Took me 5 years. I uncovered a major criminal organization and linked them to 5 brutal cases where entire families had been murdered. But during the arrest, 2 criminals lunged out of the darkness from a hidden corner. They had taken a little girl hostage. In the struggle, there was a flash of cold steel, and a knife pierced my chest. By some twist of fate, as if it was written in the stars, I had helped my brother avoid his death. But that same blade ended up in my chest. I fought through the pain and subdued the 2 remaining suspects, then spoke my last words into the radio. Come to point A10. 2 got away. They had a little girl, I got her out. I paused. Don't tell my brother. In a daze, as my colleagues shouted my name and lifted me onto a stretcher, I saw my brother walking toward me. He had a wound on his chest, too. He said to me, Oliver, I'm here to get you. Oliver, let's be together. I love you. I love you too, brother.